welcome to the Jerusalem Connection Red Alert Report for Wednesday. I'm looking at my calendar, January 24th, or 25th, actually. And today we have returning guest, Dr. Antony Harper, who's with the InterMountain Christian News and Newsreel. And he is also a White House press corps member who attends White House briefings just about daily. And Dr. Harper, we want to thank you for coming back to visit us. And the reason for our invitation to have Dr. Harper back is he's going to update us on some developments regarding the Biden administration, the recent elections in Israel, and some of the happenings going on in the political realm that we need to pray about because they open the door to anti-Semitism as well as anti-Zionism from the political stage, which of course creeps down right into the personal stage. So, Dr. Harper, thank you for being with us today, and please update us on what's been going on.
Well, thank you for letting me join you, and I wanted to remind our viewers it's InterMountain Christian News, and it's a very significant voice there at the White House. I'm usually the only Christian media person there at the White House, and there are rarely Jewish media there, and sometimes there's a reluctance to bring up the issues of anti-Semitism a lot. But what's going on, the big issue for me right now is for the Biden administration having the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, over in Israel now to put pressure on the Prime Minister Netanyahu and the Israel government to accept this, I would refer to as the two-state delusion. He often thinks it's a solution for the Middle East issues, that somehow that if you just divide up Israel and there's a so-called Palestinian state there, and everyone's going to get along. But so this is a clearly a serious issue regarding the accentuated anti-Semitic policies of the Biden administration, not to mention the other issues, of course, with trying to have conversations with Iran and really so serious issues of the funding, the Biden administration funding the Palestinian Authority. They have a pay-for-slave program. It's in violation of the Taylor Force Act, as well as the funding of the anti-Semitic UN agency, UNRWA.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So those issues are still ongoing, and it's interesting that Netanyahu, who recently was reelected as prime minister and only recently got the government formed, I just finished reading his book, Bibi My Story, and he's been pretty consistent for his decades in both starting in the IDF service when he was very young in his early 20s, through his political life where he went in and out of politics and into business and back to politics. The issue with this two-state solution, which he articulates in his book so well and tries to articulate it to the public, is the precondition of having a Palestinian state recognize Israel's right to exist first is not being met or entertained by the leadership in the Palestinian community that is currently representing them for statehood. And without that recognition and ability to say, Israel, you have the right to exist beside us, and we can work together like two countries beside each other, then peace cannot be formed. And there's just something wrong with the political pressures in all the administrations, except for maybe the Trump administration. It's been a bipartisan approach to push for a two-state solution. And I think Biden is pushing harder than ever. Would you say that you feel like the pressure is mounted more than in decades past for this two-state solution?
Oh, much more. It's just so accentuated and so intense, and the Biden administration has not shown any signs of relenting on this matter. I really like, as I mentioned before, to call this the delusion. Mm-hmm. The Biden administration, or President Biden himself, is revealing his delusion on several issues, out of touch with reality with a lot of Americans, a majority, I would say, of Americans, regarding the border, that we're having problems with at the southern border here with Mexico. But the Biden administration is so I would say that just can't sum it up more than just saying diluted.
So as now that's regarding pressure for the two-state solution. What is happening on the Iran deal side? My understanding is that it is losing support in the Senate and it lost support in the House. But have you been hearing anything specific about that deal and what its current status is?
Yeah, well, just what you just said, that it is losing some issue, some traction in the U.S. Senate. Senator James Risch is a prominent senator. He was previously the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. That he's assisted me with an investigation regarding that UN agency, UNRWA. But I'm expecting to have an interview with Senator Risch here very shortly, and to have more challenging experiences with that press secretary over this matter. What a challenge it is, Amy, to be in the press room to try to educate these news reporters about this two-state idea. And a lot of the reporters, I really kind of sense from themselves being anti-Semitic. So it's such a serious issue regarding.
Or at the very least, the kindest way would just be completely ignorant on the history and
totally ignorant.
Yeah. And you had some. I know. Okay, so there's two things that I want to talk about regarding your activity in your mission. And one of them is in that press room where you have a difficult time having the press secretary even call you, right? Even call out for you to ask a question, right? And there should be some equitable distribution of time, I would think, for the different publications and news organizations that send representatives. Obviously, the CNN and the big networks may get a little more time. Their reporters are in the front row, most likely. What's been going on, excuse me, with your efforts to just be able to ask a question?
Okay, well, it's very serious to the press secretary. It totally discriminates. You think about the Jewish and Christian audience is very large worldwide, mainly for evangelical Christians. I mean, we've got probably, over 1 billion people that identify as Christians that are really concerned, and that this is an insult to them for this press secretary to ignore our concerns. So, she refuses to respond to my email, to the questions. She refuses to meet with me. She refuses to call on me. So what message is this sending other than she is maybe not? I'm aware that of her views on Israel, being anti-Israel herself, seeing Israel as an occupier. So she's just too afraid. The issue, I really believe, is her fear of addressing our concerns. So.
And then you were able to make another breakthrough with your writing and your article writing. Tell us about the op-ed, or I'm not sure if it was an op-ed or an editorial that you had in the Jerusalem Post.
Well, that is a major breakthrough, to have my op-ed on reporting on anti-Semitism at the White House. So it is such a big issue for the Jerusalem Post to allow me to have this voice heard and expose what's going on at the White House regarding anti-Semitism issues. So very thankful for that. And of course,
we're gonna put the link up for our viewers to find your article. The interesting thing that everybody needs to know about the Jerusalem Post, and you might notice that I often cite their articles when I'm doing my Red Alert reports, is that is a very international audience. There's a huge readership in America, there's a huge readership in Israel, and there's a huge readership for the Jerusalem Post in Europe and Australia as well, and I'm sure other places. So it is really great that your voice and your observations to explain what's going on in that tiny little press room where discrimination is so clearly happening and nobody knows about it, that forum was given to you to tell everybody what's going on, and that they publish that.
Well, I know, and I would like to, to also talk about the hostility of the Biden administration towards the Jewish and Christian concerns. The hostility is just so clear to me, and so it's such a serious time that we're dealing with. The state of America, the state of Israel. We can't be cursing Israel as a nation. The Biden administration is really cursing Israel in their policies, these anti-Semitic policies, and And we know what happens to people that curse Israel.
Right, or nations, right? But I am hoping, I haven't seen the very latest polls, but the last polls that I saw in 2022, even with the heavy anti-Zionist, anti-Semitic push in various curriculums in universities, graduate schools, and even the K-12 schools, that among the adult population in America, across the board, there is still very strong support for the existence of Israel, its right to exist, its right to defend itself. And it's very important that the public know the truth, because luckily in a democracy, if we have the, ability to vote for representatives and senators and presidents in that rolling cycle, we can keep bad ideas at bay, right? Bad policy at bay whenever possible, and vote in some good ones. Of course, under the constant cover of prayer from the Christians in America and around the world. And Dr. Harper, we also pray for you in your continued efforts to expose what's going on with the policies, and also just get your questions asked so that you can alert the people in the room and everybody who has access to your articles or other articles that might talk about you in the press room, about the questions that you ask, which nobody else is asking. Nobody else is asking the questions that you ask.
It's really a sad situation there at the White House, the lack of courage for reporters to get to the deeper issues, the really important issues, and being a blessing to Israel is a big deal. I know from Genesis 12:3, the 12:3, that talks about blessings for those Abraham and his offspring, Israel in this matter, and curses for those that curse Israel. So, and there's also the issue in Joel chapter 3, verse 2, about this dividing of Israel, which is this form of anti-Semitism, where it says, and the prophet Joel says that really God is entering into judgment in the valley of Jehoshaphat, the nations that scatter his people and divide up his land. I make the White House aware of this issue about God's anger towards people that divide up that land.
Exactly. And that we're also just praying for the safety and security of the people who live in Israel and the people that defend Israel against terrorism or the results of bad policy. And we need to remember that in Israel, even if the majority of those who serve and the residents are Jewish, there are Christians, there's Druze, and there's Arab Muslims. So there's a wide variety of people whose safety we should all be concerned about, because in the end, God seeks all of them to find him. And that's what we're ultimately hoping for, right? That we can give comfort to God's people, and that they will see his face.
Yes, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And I'm looking forward to having an interview with Prime Minister Netanyahu about the topic of anti-Semitism.
Well, if you get that interview, we will certainly repost it in all of our avenues, our social media, our blog page. And also, if you get the interview with the senator, when you have that interview, we can follow up. If you prepare a video or a written article about that, we will certainly be sharing that with our audience. And we will have you back again in a couple months to update us on more happenings, especially as we get closer to the 75th anniversary of Israel coming up this May.
Well, that's going to be really wonderful. And I'm looking forward to be back into Israel, hopefully next month.
That's great.
Very soon to be there, meeting with Israel leaders and meeting with the Prime Minister.
Oh, that's wonderful. Dr. Harper, thank you again for your time and your updates. And we will keep track of what's going on and share your work as you produce it and your news. And we look forward to having you back.
It's great to join you, Amy. Thanks and we'll look forward to getting together very soon. So.
Great. Shavua Tov, and have a great week.
Thank you.